more like an alien. He calls it the Black Alien Project. Anthony claims he's only 44% done and has plans to do lots more. He's even expressed that the next step is to donate a part of his leg from the knee down. This is Anthony Lafredo, and this is...
We got white tees with no tags. We're looking.
It don't hurt, it just burns.
You used to burning those.
Once it shades it, I'm gonna feel like a water. I'm gonna always take shots like this. Wow.
It swells up. It swells up. Mine's gonna pop out. Remember when we used
like this?
tic-tac-toe my skin?
They used to play tic-tac-toe on his skin. I remember that. Next week, I'm getting it up there. I'm gonna get something right there.
I thought it was gonna be right there.
I'm gonna put cloud right here.
What's on YouTube? Here's what do I? He's scratching me, but it's a hard scratch.
Yeah.
Like a cat claw. Oh my god, I'm feeling the sweat. I can't.
I tell you.
And this ain't nothing crap out there. I don't want to see nothing.
Exactly.
This motherfucker. That's this thing though.
Facts.
Who's that now? Yeah, I'm over here somewhere. That's just the jeans.
Facts.
Go ahead, you can sing. We know that I need just those stars got caught up. It's hard out here for a lonely stoner. So I just pray to God never throw up a...
Yeah. The same reason why you can't shower. Shower. Alright.
I cannot. 20 years. That's 20 years. My mom used to make it.
I'm out of, got his hands on his ears, and I got some clothes. I don't gotta do it, bro. Like, this pretty much is not even a room. It's just like a lobby area. And we turn it into a room. But I know she can hear me.
My breakthrough income.
Make stories that will become the stuff of legend this summer. Win a Suffolk pub for a night for you and your friends and other legendary prizes.
This program is part of the move to...
And recognize the great...
What did we put up for? How does it make you feel?
It makes me excited. It makes me excited.
Lainey's dad died more than 11 years ago. So that was very difficult for her not to have her dad in her life anymore. When she comes here and spends the day or even overnight, or when it's time to return to her home, in the over 25 years that she has no longer lived with me,
Oh my goodness.
it's never easy.
She got me another CD and it's another CD.
Yeah, but can you tell her the one you found it? It's the other one. The Simon and Garfunkel.
The transition from my car into where she lives is extremely difficult. I know that once she's back in the routine, she's okay. She likes where she is. It used to be something I totally dreaded, was having to take her back and see her almost despair at leaving me.
How you doing?
Well, I have to go visit Edith. She's probably, and I don't like it. What's my birthday?
You tell him.
Today is my birthday. I am not going to take all this holiday. I have to have a picture with it.
When I took my cell phone to record Lee going to the dentist, she really didn't pay any attention to me at all. You know, she was so focused on not opening her mouth. She didn't care what I was doing.
Can we see your teeth? We can't see them when your lips are closed.
Having a healthcare professional touch her, make her do things that she doesn't want to do, probably will continue to be a struggle.
Mother, you better know what it is. That's what it is. Well, she has to say it. How?
But because we see Dr. Jacobson to have the patients and genuine respect for Lainey and Lainey's inability to behave like any other patient, it makes that trip so much easier. In her mid-40s, another thing that I think about as a young woman is going through menopause. Hot flashes, will that be an issue for Lainey as she goes on into her 50s? You know, her hair is graying. And Angie and I used to joke and say, Lainey is never going to be gray. What comes in the 60s? What comes when I'm not here? Which is certainly something that I think, you know, we all think about. There. Yeah. And I started saying something to Lainey about death.
Sweet.
How will she incorporate that into her life when my red car that she still calls a Jeep, which it is not, doesn't come up the driveway anymore? You know, how will she figure that out? And I'm not going to be there to help. With that.
You want to play like a bird?
I think it's important to help others feel comfortable talking with your child with a disability. The acceptance is something that is so important to all of us.
How do I bring somebody that thinks about the world differently, that has a different operating system, that processes information differently into their circle, so that as they have opportunities to learn and grow as a group, they have the benefit of having these folks with different perspectives.
You know, 1990, we had the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we've gotten so good at understanding what accommodations are for people with physical challenges. We have curb cuts and handicapped parking spaces and ramps and hotel rooms with lights for their fire alarm for people who are deaf. But now, what are accommodations for someone with a neurological challenge? What would an accommodation be for someone with an autism spectrum disorder? As opposed to saying that they have to learn to act. Which we wouldn't say if you had a physical disability, because we can see that. So I think that a lot of the education, the public education, needs to focus on how do we learn to accommodate people better so that they can achieve their higher goals, as opposed to constantly focus on them having to change their behavior.
For me, I get asked, what's my identity? Being a college professor, working in the cattle industry, designing equipment, autism is an important part of who I am. I wouldn't want to change it because I don't like the illogical way that most people think. But it's not my primary identity. I looked really terrible when I was 2 years old. Kids can look really bad. Then as you work with them, some kind of pull out of it, others don't. But you don't know until you start to work with them. And that's why early intervention is so important. And what I'm seeing as I travel around the country is we're doing a better job on the early intervention, but where we're really falling down is with the older kids, teaching job skills, driving. That's going to take longer because of the multitasking issue. I did 200 miles on dirt roads at my aunt's ranch, picking up the mail every day, which was 3 miles away, before I did traffic. A lot more practice in really safe places. When I was 4 years old, I was nonverbal, had all the symptoms of severe autism. I was fortunate to get into a really good early intervention program. Lots of turn-taking games, teaching me language, teaching table manners. That was done in a much more structured way back in the 50s. What I want to demonstrate is how you walk back by them to get them to come up and shoot. If you've got 3-year-olds that are not talking, the worst thing you could do is just to wait. You got to start working with that kid now. I've seen too many situations where the diagnosis is holding fully verbal kids back because there's a tendency to baby them and they're not learning how to drive, they're not learning working skills. And very often today, I have grandparents come up to me and they discover they're on the autism spectrum when the kids get diagnosed. But those grandparents had decent jobs because they had paper routes at age 11, learned how to work. Social skills in my generation were taught in a much more structured way. In the 50s, we had sit-down meals. You were taught how to take turns in conversation, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the older generation had jobs and kept their jobs. You see, a brain can be more thinking, or a brain can be more social-emotional, and a certain amount of this is just normal variation. And years ago, I said, who do you think made the first stone spear back in the caveman days? It wasn't the yakety yaks around the campfire. It would have been somebody probably on the autism spectrum in the back of the cave trying to chip that rock and tie it to a stick. What you got to do with kids on the spectrum is stretch them. Stretch them just outside the comfort zone, but give them choices. Now, the way I got into the cattle industry is I was exposed to it when I was a teenager. I came from a non-ag background, and when the opportunity came up to visit my aunt's ranch, Mother gave me a choice. I could go for a week, come home if I hated it, or stay all summer. Not going wasn't one of the choices, but giving some choices of stretching activities. The other thing we cannot let these kids do is become recluses in their room. They get so anxious, they just don't want to come out of their room. Exercise will help on that. I do 100 sit-ups every night. But you've got to get them out doing things. And I've had parents say, oh, he's got a job in a store and he's just blossoming. You see, a person on the spectrum has lots of memory. So let's compare to computer systems. So you got the cloud computing memory back here. Tons and tons of memory, but a really small chip. Working memory is a problem. And so anything that requires remembering a sequence of steps, like maybe doing the ice cream machine at McDonald's, pilot's checklist. And when I worked in the dairy, when I was a graduate student, they had a checklist on the wall on how to set up the dairy equipment, the milking machine equipment, and I would have been in a lot of trouble without that checklist. That's a real easy thing to do. Let's look at situations in the environment that cause problems with people with autism, and that's lighting. Certain kinds of lighting flickers. I was just in the hotel room the other day. It was completely horrible. It had chevron black and white stripes on the floor and compact fluorescent lights. And I could see the pattern on the floor going like this. Now, I tolerated it okay, but there are certain people where this would be completely awful. I have some sound sensitivity problems. One of the ways to help get over sound sensitivity is let the kids control it. All right, let's say he's afraid of the vacuum cleaner. Then let the kid turn it on and off. Let the kid control that vacuum cleaner, where they are controlling that sound. And then they can sometimes learn to tolerate it if they control it. I get asked all the time, should I tell the kid they have autism? If he's having a great time, I wouldn't bother telling them. And I'm seeing too many kids where their whole identity is autism. And they say, oh, I want to be an autism activist. And I explain to them, you will be a better activist if you can go out and excel in a job, maybe an engineering job, an art job, writing job, or something like that. And then you do the activist stuff. I always emphasize all the things I've done at work. And what I learned is I learned to sell my work. People thought it was weird. But when I showed them my drawings and my pictures, they looked at that and go, oh, you designed that? People on the spectrum usually are good at one thing, bad at something else. We need to be putting a lot more emphasis on building up the area of strength. Talking to the FFA and the 4-H students today just about some basic things about animal behavior. And one of the things I learned from animals was learning how to work. I was not a good student in high school, but I learned how to work in my school's horse barn. Big problem I'm seeing today is not learning work skills, because I'm afraid that some of those kids today are just ending up getting addicted to video games. And they're not going anywhere. They're not becoming video game designers. If they were becoming great video game designers, I wouldn't be criticizing them, but that's not where they're going. And I'm seeing a really big problem on not learning working skills. How about walking dogs? How about church volunteer jobs? Find things in the neighborhood that the kid can do that's on a schedule outside the family. I was bullied in high school. I got bullied in school. It was awful. Fortunately, I was not bullied in elementary school, because Mrs. Deeks, the third grade teacher, explained that I had a disability, but it wasn't a disability you could see, like having a wheelchair or crutches, and the other kids ought to be helping me. So high school was a disaster, complete disaster of bullying. In elementary school, other kids like to do craft projects. So I had friends who shared interests. It's a really important thing. Friends who shared interests. Then when I was in high school and I was still getting bullied, the only places I was not bullied was horseback riding, model rockets, and electronics. Again, that is shared interests. Really important to get kids maybe involved in band, the school play. It could be lots of different things. Being a woman in the feed yard industry was much harder than being autistic. Way harder. Well, I don't do the bar scene. That's too socially complicated for me. Also, I can't hear. I've got some auditory processing problems with background noise. I can't hear. You know, I think what makes my life interesting and worthwhile is work. Also, if you quickly walk back by them like that, they'll go fool. I was very happy to have a lady come up to me in the airport last night and tell me that she'd read my books and looked at some of my videos and that really helped her daughter. That's something that gives meaning to life.
One of the things that we're excited about is how has the world changed in viewing autism, right? 25 years ago, we were talking about awareness. What is autism? We've moved from awareness to acceptance, that person in the grocery store is different than me. I can accept that he handles it differently than I do. I can accept that he communicates differently than I do. Maybe that next door neighbor has autism, and I can accept him in my world. The question now is, are we getting to appreciation? Can we move from awareness to acceptance to appreciation? What does this person have that my life benefits? And there are things that they bring to the table. They have an innate personality. They have an ability to do certain things that I can't do. Right? How do we tap into those strengths? And that's what we think about our communities today. We don't want to just be in your community. We want, as a person with autism, to be a part of your community, meaning we're not just visiting. We are your neighbors. We are your coworkers. We're your fellow churchgoers. We enjoy the same hobbies and interests. Right? So how do we make opportunities for people to be fully accepted and appreciated?
See you later. See you later.
This program is part of the Move to Include initiative, made possible with support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The Max and Helen Guernsey Charitable Foundation, in support of educational programming on statewide Iowa PBS.
later we are. Okay, I think right. Why not? Music. Good.
Between lions and hippos.
Yay.
Two of the biggest killers. Two cowards heading for a showdown.